Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who video where we are just a few hours away from the next episode of Doctor Who Flux, Survivors of the Flux. So I thought in the build up to today's episode I'd just give you guys a little preview, a few thoughts, theories, what might happen tonight. Obviously we're racing through Doctor Who Flux, we're already 4 out of 6 episodes of the way through. After tonight we'll only have the finale left, so I'm sure tonight's going to leave us on some massive cliffhanger, big dramatic shenanigans going on. Obviously we've got to find out what's going to happen with the Doctor, given she's currently a weeping angel, and there's lots that I think could happen in this episode. So where do we start really? Well, I guess the best way to do is to look at where we were at the end of the last episode. Obviously the Doctor is a weeping angel, supposedly recalled to the division, whatever that may entail, and by doing that the angels turned her into a weeping angel to be able to take her to wherever the division are and all of that. So that's where the Doctor's been left, and then obviously Yaz and Dan have been left stuck in 1901 in this village that had been pulled out of time at that point, so I'm not quite sure, has it been put back in time now or what? I don't quite understand that. And they've also got Professor Jericho with him, and I guess Peggy as well, the child, but I don't get the impression that she's got any role in this episode. We're not 100% sure at the moment. Apart from that, the main other lingering storyline, I guess, was the very end of the episode where we saw Vinda receiving the video message from Belle, and Belle getting cut off just before she was able to say the coordinates of where she was, which made me theorise, there's all the rumours about Belle and Vinda being the Doctor's parents. Could those coordinates be the coordinates for Gallifrey? I don't know. It's just a theory, but, it could be a bit of fun. But yeah, fundamentally, Belle and Vinda are still looking for each other. They're trapped out in the universe, or not trapped, but exploring the universe post-Flux and trying to figure out what's going on and try and find each other. So where does that leave us for tonight? Well, I think that clearly the whole division storyline, I think, is going to get a lot more explanation, hopefully, given that at least supposedly the Doctor is being sent back to the division. So we're presumably going to meet people who are in charge of the organisation and run it, hopefully get some, maybe flashbacks to the Ruth Doctor days, see a bit of the Ruth Doctor, possibly, might be nice. There's no indication of whether she's in this episode or not, but that was also kept under the wraps in episode 3, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But I do just think that this is going to be a story where we finally learn a lot more about the Doctor's past, about what the division used to be like, what her role was as part of the division. Like, I really feel this is going to be the episode where we kind of go back in time and start to learn about all of this. Before then, the final episode 6, The Vanquishers, is much more focused on resolving the story rather than really doing an info dump and a load of exposition that I think will be a big part of this episode. So I think we can start to expect some answers, start to expect some explanation as to what the Doctor was like, why she was a part of the division, why she left the division, why she was a fugitive on the run from them, and just everything around that. I really think that's what we're finally going to get some explanation of in this episode. I mean, we have no real indication of what the Doctor's role in this episode is going to be because the trailers feature nothing of her, the promotional images feature nothing of her, so we really don't have any impression or indication of where her story is going to go. I guess the thing we are aware of is that the character of Orsoc, who we saw at the end of episode 3, Once Upon a Time, this mysterious woman who seemed to know a lot about the Doctor and the division and was the one who said that, oh yeah, the Doctor was the one, the flux was caused by the Doctor or because of the Doctor or something like that. We know, as far as we know, she's on the cast list. She's going to appear in this episode again. I think she's got to be something to do with the high-ups of the division, and so I feel like the Doctor's going to come across her again, and maybe there'll start to be a bit more explanations going on from that in that aspect of the story. I believe also the Ood, we're going to see an Ood in this episode finally, and people are sort of predicting that the Ood is kind of going to be maybe an assistant for this character of Orsoc or something along those lines, but it appears by the sort of background of the setting and the images we've seen of the Ood that it's the same as where we saw Orsoc previously, so it seems logical that would all connect in together there, albeit we don't really know where Orsoc is or anything about her or anything. So I'm just looking forward to maybe getting a bit more explanation on exactly what's going on there. So I think that will be one big plot strand of the episode. Alongside that, I mean, I think it's going to be another episode full of different aspects that eventually are crossing over. I do think by the end of this episode, things will very much be kind of closing into each other, and there will be very few kind of errant plot strands that don't really make any sense. I feel like it's all going to kind of start really coming together in this episode and setting up probably some sort of big cliffhanger. We obviously know we've got Dan, Yaz and Professor Jericho trapped in 1901. In the trailer it's mentioned that they've been there for at least a couple of years, so they're going to be spending a long time sort of stuck in this ancient time period, not really knowing whether they're ever going to be able to get back. Then we've seen from the promotional images that the character of Joseph Williamson, who has obviously been a bit of a meme of this series so far, and his random appearances, the random Williamson of the week, I was kind of disappointed we didn't get that in Village of the Angels. feels personally. But I think he's finally going to start to make some sense, have some relevance, really be a part of the story for the first episode that we've already had this series. It appears that Yaz and Dan and Jericho, I think as well, are going to end up in some form of tunnels somewhere, which appear to then become or are the Williamson tunnels that he was building in the 1820s. Obviously, this makes no sense because they're in 1901, maybe 1903 or 4 by the point of when that happens. They end up in these tunnels. And yet Williamson died in 1840, so maybe he's time traveling to the future, maybe they've time traveled back further, he's been pulled out of time. There's going to be some sort of time travel timey-wimey explanation as to how he comes across and meets them, and I can't help but think that Williamson is going to be a massively significant and influential character in this series and in the resolution, because he's been dumped in so many episodes for seemingly no reason. He's surely got to be a very, very big and main character, and I think in this episode we're finally going to get to start to really see and understand what that was all about. We're going to get more stuff with Belle and Vinda in this story. We know both of them are appearing in this episode. We've seen a few promotional images of Vinda seemingly doing some stuff. I think Belle had a promo image as well in her ship, Vinda wandering around. Like, there's not really any impression of where that's ultimately going to go. You have to presume they ultimately meet each other again and, then go off and save the day or something. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing a little bit here. But clearly that storyline is going to kind of continue alongside the other main plots of the series. And of course, the big thing that I haven't even mentioned yet is the return of Kate Stewart. She is back in this episode, as we saw in the Next Time trailer from Village of the Angels. We think that units are therefore going to be back. There's a promotional image showing a unit logo, which appears that they are back in some form, whether they're back as a full organisation or not, because obviously in Resolution back at the beginning of 2019, after Series 11 in the special, Chris Chibnall wrote that unit had been put on like sort of, indefinitely shut down basically because of Brexit or something. I think it was basically a cheap joke about Brexit, I think was the gist of it. And yet that seemingly had shut off unit, but obviously not anymore. They're back in full force. Maybe that's been forced upon them because of the flux and everything that's been going on with that. Possibly, I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's interesting because we haven't actually had any impression of what Earth has been like since the Flux came. Obviously, we know, at least up until now, there's been the Lipari ships that have put a complete barrier around the Earth, which presumably means it's just been night permanently since that happened. But what has actually the people of Earth been, how they've been dealing with this? Like, what's been going on there? Because we just haven't really seen any of it, apart from a brief bit with Dan's parents in episode 2, War of the Sontarans, and then seeing, obviously, the Sontaran ships were all defeated, and seemingly that was all, that part of the sort of bad invasion of the Earth bit was gone, but presumably the Lipari ships were still, covering the Earth. But then I think Carvanista mentions in the trailer that the Lipari sort of shield has been breached and broken, and so the Flux, if it's still around, can now breach them. But then I feel like the Flux has kind of done its work and it's kind of it's not ended, but like it's happened. The event itself has happened. So maybe it's for some other aliens to come and attack the Earth. That's sort of the remains of it. I don't know, but I just think it's intriguing that we haven't really had much stuff on Earth in the last couple of episodes. And now seemingly with the introduction of Unit again and Kate Stewart, presumably we're going to get much more of a focus on what has happened on Earth since we last saw it and what is going on there, because that's a bit of an open story so far. We also knew the character, the Grand Serpent, played by Craig Parkinson, is going to be another big part of this episode. It's intriguing that he's supposedly listed as playing both the Great Serpent and a character called Prentice as well, which is rather intriguing, and I don't know quite, maybe that's just like a cover name that he's got, because it seems there's some shots of him in the trailer talking to Kate Stewart. We get that I think he's talking to Kate Stewart. Certainly you see him standing in front of the TARDIS. That's very clear in one of the shots of the trailer. So I think he's very much going to be on Earth, working with or against Unit. I think maybe as a villain, probably against Unit in some form, infiltrating them or something. I don't know. But I think he's going to be a very, very big part of these last 2 episodes. I think he's very much going to be one of the main characters. He's certainly been bigging up on Twitter as Craig Parkinson. And after his small but, substantial appearance in Once Upon a Time, I think he's going to be a big part of this episode. So I think that covers near enough everything we know about this episode so far. We know we've got like Diane coming back in some form in this episode, passengers turning up again as well. Intriguingly, the guy who played the main Sontaran leader in War of the Sontarans, he is in some form coming back in this episode as well, which I thought was quite intriguing, and I'm interested to see where, if the Sontarans have any more real involvement and how that's all going to play out. I just think that bit's quite interesting. Maybe he survived somehow, or I don't know. Could be something around that. And I guess there's also still even a few episodes later, the mysterious sort of black and white house on sort of buildings on top of buildings thing, that sort of vision that the Doctor saw at the beginning of War of the Sontarans, which, people's theory is the House of Lungbarrow or something. And there's been nothing yet. There's been no, it hasn't been picked up at all. I'm sure it will be at some point. Will this be the episode? Because I really think this is going to be the episode where we learn more about the Doctor's backstory. We learn more about the division. I think this is the episode where we're really going to hit into all of that. And obviously Swarm and Azure have a big plot to play in this as well. They seem to be feasting on some time energy or something in the trailer. So presumably they're going to, I feel like at the end of this episode, it's going to feel like the sort of villains, whether it is Swarm and Azure or if there's someone bigger than that, but it's going to feel like the villains have won. I think it's going to be very much a complete end, no hope cliffhanger that we end on this episode. And then obviously the Doctor, or maybe Doctors, will save the day in the finale, the Vanquishers, at the end of the series. But yes, I think that's pretty much all we know and all I can say about the episode so far. Obviously it's airing tonight, so we haven't exactly got long to wait to find out what's going to happen in Survivors of the Flux. I'm tremendously excited to see where the end of the series goes. I think it's been such an exciting, experimental and different series, but I think it's worked so effectively so far. I'm just hoping that in these final 2 episodes, Chris can really just do the series justice and bring it to the perfect conclusion. But guys, please let me know your thoughts and your theories down in the comments below. I want you to predict what's going to happen in tonight's episode. Please let me know in the comments your theories for Survivors of the Flux. But apart from that, guys, as always, please hit that like button and that subscribe button if you are new here. Check out all the videos. I've done loads of videos about Doctor Who Flux, and there's lots more to come as well. But apart from that, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you again very soon for a brand new video. Until then, it's goodbye.